What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are on site at the Woodcraft in Las Vegas for their big annual show, and we're having a great time. Today what we're doing is we're making a leash holder for my wife for our camper, and we're going to be using the template of the month for May, named after my boy Gus. This is Gus's paw. So as always, guys, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon. We got all kinds of cool stuff coming up you guys don't want to miss. Also, we're doing free exclusive content. You just got to be a part of the emailing list. There's a link in the description below along with links to everything we're using today.
All right, guys, so first thing we got to do is get this thing laid out. Now, we've only got one paw, so I'm going to show you actually how we want to do one on each end, and we have to leave room for the hooks for the leashes. We've got our letters already laid out on here. Now what I decided to do is use 1-inch Clarendon. You can see I drew in the apostrophe. I'm going to make these outset. So because of that, I need a little bit more room. So I'm dropping the paw down here, Gus's paw. I'm going to drop it down kind of in the corner, put a little angle to it, and then I'll do the same thing and I'll spray it over here. Now I'm just going to block this off and I'm going to spray that thing real quick. Block that off.
I think it's thinner than it is.
You don't need two of these. You can just flip it over, and now we have exactly the same image on both ends, and this will be the area for the hooks. That's done. Let's get into carving.
The first bit we used is a profile bit at 3/16 of an inch deep. Now these are pretty small letters, they're only 1 inch, so when you do your layout, you want to make sure that you leave enough room in between your letters that you can fit the bit in there without nicking your lines. The 1-inch Clarendon S can be real difficult to do sometimes. You can see where the parts almost touch, it gets really thin. So what you want to do is actually lift your router bit, that way it's not going to take out the entire vertical part of the S. It'll make it a little bit smaller, but nobody will ever know. With letters like the A, you can see that Dad went across the entire bottom in one shot. You don't want to try to follow your lines. You want to get the entire bottom done and then come back and take out the middle after you get your straight line. Once the initial profile was done on all the lettering, Dad dropped the router bit down to about 1/4 of an inch, and then he went back around to give himself a fatter line. Now this step is really tempting to skip, but trust me on this one. It's so much easier to do your cleanup when you have more room. It doesn't take very long, and it really helps with the end product. For something like the paw, where there's mostly a nice fat line to go around, you could use the 60 or the 90 degree. But in an area like this where it gets a little thinner, Dad decided to stick with the profile bit at 1/4 of an inch deep. Now what he did is go around each piece individually, and then all he did was go around the inside perimeter of it and remove the rest of the wood. It turned out pretty nice. The last bit Dad used was the 90 degree at about 3/16 of an inch deep. Now doing the cloud around the lettering, sometimes it takes a little getting used to, so you can go around and just kind of draw your general outline. Dad's been doing it so long he doesn't really need to do that anymore. You're just going to go around and make a nice outline cloud and give yourself some room to get in there, and then remove the rest of the wood. And with this 90 degree bit, it goes pretty quick and it gives it a really nice looking texture. This is our 45 degree chamfer bit. The cool thing about this bit is that you can set it to any depth you want, whether you want a real small chamfer or a really deep one. What Dad's doing here is scalloping, so he set it nice and deep, and then he's just kind of making a random pattern trying to get those pieces to connect. It gives it a super nice look and something you don't see a whole lot of. Then Dad used the primer to spray everything black. Now, a lot of new carvers, they overspray, which can cause a lot of bleeding. Just remember, once you sand everything off, there's going to be a big contrast, so you don't have to get every little speck of wood color inside that carving. Then we use the 60 grit disc on the disc sander to get 90% of the black off. Now, if you have not used a disc sander, you've got to try this thing. It works amazing. And it does leave some swirls, but once you go back with the 120 grit on the random orbital, you never see them. It gives it a nice smooth finish, and also it takes about half the time of a handheld belt sander. Alright guys, so the last thing we got to do is we got to put the leash hooks on there. So we are on site and we did not bring a drill, which in hindsight, not the best idea. But instead, we're just going to use the carving liner to make our little pilot holes for our hooks. I lined up the hooks where I wanted them to go, then just used an ink pen to make my marks. I took the carving liner bit and I dropped it down a little over 1/8 of an inch, just enough to get those hooks started. It actually worked really well. Alright guys, so there it is. Now, When you're hanging something up in a camper or an RV, you do not want to drill any holes. So I just use double-sided Velcro. That way we can pop this off to bring the pop-up in, and it's nice and easy. So as always, guys, I will put a link in the description below for the 1-inch Clarendon and for Gus's paw, which I think his paw is actually a little bigger than this. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.